you're gonna break into. On you.
Talking Boxing with Billy C. It began as a podcast, went live on the net, and transformed into a full-blown empire across the web, on Fight Now TV, and on radio stations around the world. It's the only daily boxing talk radio show on the planet, hosted by the only guy with the balls to do it. Many have stepped into the ring. Many have tried to take the belt. And one by one, they've fallen. Another victim of the undisputed heavyweight champion of boxing talk radio. Talking Boxing with Billy C is on now.
My style is impetuous, my defense is impregnable, and I'm just ferocious. I want your heart.
And we're coming to you live from the Billy C studio in Lake George, New York. I'm Bill Caligiero, and it's time for Talking Boxing. Billy C, good morning, good day, good evening. Whenever you listen, hope you're doing all right. We've got a busy show scheduled for today. And speaking of the show, don't forget, programming note. Here's a programming note for you. Ready? No live show tomorrow for the stream people, the YouTubers, the podcasts, all that stuff. So no show Friday. Fight Now will broadcast the show, but no live show tomorrow. However, everybody's going to be cooking dogs, drinking beer, eating burgers, and I'm going to be doing a show. That's right, Monday, Memorial Day. We will be here, so tune it in right here on however you're watching it. If you're watching the show on BillyCBoxing.com, Fight Now, podcast, radio dial, whatever. Today's show is being brought to you in part by The Gentleman Boxer. It's a great read written by Ian Grumeza. It's a story of the bantamweights, but specifically Joe Grimm, a guy who was a top 10 bantamweight, ready to get a world title shot and decides to walk away at a very young age, in his 20s. Check it out, man. The book is one of these kinds of books you can't put down. You could get The Gentleman Boxer, where all good books are sold, including Barnes & Noble, Amazon.com, or just click on one of the Gentleman Boxer banners that's located up on BillyCBoxing.com. Today's show is also being brought to you in part by the Titty Grab game. If you're looking for a game, you play with couples, maybe, okay, let's be real. You play with some girls, if you're a guy, you play with some girls, you shove some liquor down their throat, and you hope, maybe later on, well, Well, it's a great game. It's called Titty Grab. See what I'm talking about? Visit their website, www.tittygrab.com, for all the information, where to get the game, how to play the game, what it's all about, all that stuff, www.tittygrab.com. Today's show is also being brought to us in part by the International Women's Boxing Hall of Fame. It's their inaugural induction ceremony event, an extravaganza, if you will, taking place in beautiful Fort Lauderdale, Florida, on July 10th. Now, I'm going to be there. I'm going to be doing the emceeing, and I hope you're there, too. Now, you can get all the information about this, great event. Not only is it a great historical boxing event, by visiting www.wban.com. You can also click one of the posters that's on the BillyCBoxing.com website. Now, fear not, if you can't make it to Fort Lauderdale on July 10th for this historical event, don't worry about it. You'll be able to watch the whole ceremony for free on www.ldltv.com. So mark that one down. And finally, today's show is also being brought to you in part by the Turning Stone Resort and Casino and their next boxing event, which is scheduled for tomorrow. That's right, man. Tomorrow. That's why we're not doing a live show tomorrow. And I'm going to be up there. Get yourself some tickets. I believe there's still tickets available. You got to call their box office or visit it by visiting www.turningstone.com, or just click on one of the Turning Stone fight posters up on BillyCBoxing.com. Make sure you tell them Billy C sent you, demand a discount, and all that happy stuff. Hey, man, why should you go? Well, not only is the Turning Stone Resort and Casino a beautiful place, not only is it going to be a great show, but it's the Boxcino tournament finals for both the lightweight and the middleweight. Check it out, man. www.turningstone.com. And finally, one more, and finally, to the FM dial, 87.7, or you could check it out worldwide, www.wvoaradio.com. Coming up in a little bit, we got some, already the stream is shit in the bed. You know, you guys gotta become premium podcast subscribers, because if you get as frustrated as I do with the crappy stream that YouTube offers, then you need to become a premium podcast subscriber. It's only $15 a year, and you're guaranteed the show every day. We never, ever lose the podcast. So if you're frustrated and you miss a show or whatever, being a premium podcast subscriber is the way to go. Or demand Fight Now TV. That's the other way. We got some news. Some fight results that took place in Japan today, or later, or last night, which didn't happen yet here. Also, some WBC news about gloves. You know, boxing needs continuity. It does not need diversify. You know, we don't want it diversified. We don't want it all broken up and scattered. We need unity, you know. We really do. And I'll tell you what's got my goat today with the WBC. A couple of more tournaments to talk about, and one that we may be involved in, which didn't break the news yet. Some quotes from Miguel Cotto. Speaking of Miguel Cotto, we got some news on the New York State Athletic Commission. They were bragging about bringing in a new main guy, and they were talking about how they want to save money and blah blah blah. I got some news on that. How about they fire the only two people with experience with the New York State Athletic Commission, and then hire, you know, a bunch more people making big bucks, man. They're not saving any money. It's not looking good, in my opinion, and we'll be talking about that a little bit later. But first, I got some emails. And the first email is from my man Joel. And Joel says, in response to your question to your audience throughout the show yesterday, I'm interested in Saturday's card of Adonis Stevenson against Andres Fonfara. Even though I live in New York, I follow a lot of boxers from Quebec, and I look forward to that card. I like Adonis, David Lemieux, Elder Alvarez, and Kevin Bizier. I feel, though, Adonis will easily beat Fonfara by TKO in the mid-rounds. Thanks for doing the show. This coming Monday, I'll be working, and we'll finish just in time to watch you on Fight Now. Well, I'm glad somebody's interested in that. Listen, it's not a matter of, whether you like these fighters or not. I mean, it's not a matter of that. Listen, when a fighter gets to become world class, when a fighter is a world champion, and as much as we all admit, most of us, that there's too many sanctioning bodies, there's too many world titleists, etc., when you get that belt, you got to be at least whatever organization you're wearing that belt for, you're their best guy in their opinion. And that requires fighting the best guys available. The boxing, the divisions have become so diluted because one fighter that's ranked in one sanctioning body isn't ranked in another, or they are until they win a belt, then they're not. So what we end up with is nowhere near the top 10 best fighters. And that's kind of what's happening with Adonis Stevenson this weekend. Now, like Joel, I do follow a lot of the Canadian fighters, but I have no interest in watching Adonis Stevenson fight Andres Fonfara. I'm sorry. Reno says Keith Thurman against Marcos Medina looks like it's going to be the co-main event for Mayweather's next fight, according to BoxRec. What do you think? Yeah. It does look like it's going to be. It's already up there. But just remember something. BoxRec is not official, okay? I know we all use it. I know it's a really, really good tool for us to punch up and check out a schedule or look at a fighter's record or resume, etc. But BoxRec is not official. In case you don't know how it works, if you got the right connection with BoxRec, and you're a matchmaker or a promoter or what have you, and you know that a fight's coming up, you put that card and you submit it, and BoxRec posts it on their schedule. Now, how many times have there been an issue with a fighter or something like that, and the matchup changes? Maybe a fight's removed, another one's added. Maybe a fight goes from 10 rounds to 8 rounds, et cetera. A title gets added, whatever the case is. Yes, there is some strong rumors, and it came on the heels of Team Mayweather talking about the fight. They picked the date. The date is September 13th. They were, Floyd was, saying that he would give Marcos Medina a rematch post-fight. But now all of a sudden, Marcos Medina is too dirty of a fighter. It's just another plethora of excuses for Floyd, to make things easy for himself. However, there's some strong rumor that he may choose. Now, if Keith Thurman does fight Marcos Medina, now don't get me wrong, I'm not a big fan of watching Mayweather fight Medina again for a rematch, although I could be okay with it. I wasn't really looking for it because I don't think Floyd is going to let that fight be as exciting as it was in the first time. But with that said, I personally believe, and one of the other names that were mentioned was Danny Garcia. I personally believe the fight will be with Danny Garcia. And the reason I believe that is because Floyd saw a very, very beatable Danny Garcia in Danny Garcia's last fight. He also had said that he wanted to move up to welterweight, Danny Garcia. So I think it's safe to say that we would see that. Not to mention Floyd, is looking for an easy fight. But with all that said, there is also rumor that he may fight Shawn Porter. Now, that's the fight I personally want to see. I want to see Floyd Mayweather. Now, don't get me wrong. I enjoyed watching his last fight, but I would really enjoy seeing him show us that he can beat a young gun. Now, hold that thought. I'm going to take a short break, and I'll be right back. If you're in upstate New York and you need a trucking company, then you need Roselli Enterprises. Roselli Enterprises is trucking at its finest. They have it all. Dump trucks, dump trailers, walk-in floors, flatbeds, flow boys, tankers, loaders, and a full line of roll-off containers for any job, big or small. Roselli Enterprises is also the source for all your sand, gravel, and topsoil needs. Visit them on the web at RoselliTrucking.com or call 315-433-5115. That's 315-433-5115 and tell them Billy C sent you.
Are you ready, America? Then let's get it on with Fight Now TV. It's time, fight fans. Your channel has arrived. All the fights, all the names, all the action. From world-class boxing events to mixed martial arts showdowns and other combat sports matchups, Fight Now TV delivers the hits and more. Call your television provider and tell them you want to get it on with Fight Now TV. For more details, go to fightnow.com.
We've got a great matchup tonight. Fighting out of the left corner is the #1 ranked contender.
No, he is not.
I'm sorry, but who are you?
I am the IBO computer. I am programmed to provide only fair and unbiased boxing rankings. This fighter is the number 15 ranked contender.
Fair and unbiased boxing rankings? That's a new concept.
Actually, it is not. The IBO has provided unbiased computerized rankings for many years.
Well, we've still got a great fight tonight, folks. In the left corner is the number 15 ranked contender.
The IBO, the champion of integrity. Learn more at IBOboxing.com.
Check out BillyCBoxing.com now, or feel the wrath of the mighty mustache.
Oh, that hurts. Why are you doing that to my face? I hate you.
That's BillyCBoxing.com. Consider this your warning.
As a young boy, all Billy C dreamed about was one day having his own catchphrase.
And we're back. And we're back.
One boy, one dream, one day, everyone will say.
And we're back. 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 And we're back.
Catchphrase coming soon to a theater near you.
And you didn't think I was coming back, huh? We're back. You're listening to the Talking Boxing with Billy C show. Hey, man, follow us on Twitter. I appreciate we're seeing that people are definitely listening to us. So anybody you know would like to get that followers up to 10,000, and we're getting close to being halfway there. So if you're not following us yet, please follow us on Twitter. It's at Talkin' Boxing, TalkinBoxing. And would appreciate it. Hey, before I went to break, we were talking about Floyd Mayweather. We got the email about Thurman and Maidana. And here's the thing, I just would like to see, Floyd, he showed us some, okay, not us, he showed me, all right? I've been very critical of Floyd. If you've ever listened to the show, you know it, okay? Now, the reason is I'm not saying that Floyd Mayweather is not a talented fighter. I've never suggested that or said it. But what irks me mostly is you guys, the fans that think that he's so great. And the point is that, and I use the analogy, if you take another sports team and they're always playing the worst team every week or every night or whatever sport there are, and they finish their season undefeated, are they really that great? And that's what Floyd has done in this part of his career. Not early, because he had to climb the ranks just like anybody else, but since he's been where he's at, okay? My point is that, he makes all this money. This is something that boxing has given to him. He hasn't given us anything, okay? He hasn't given us, you look at a guy like Arturo Gatti, Mickey Ward, Jack Dempsey, Sugar Ray Robinson, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. They've given us a lot in this sport in terms of entertainment. Floyd hasn't really entertained us. Okay, the new generation of fight fan claims that they're entertained by the sweet science, which is a crock of shit. Let's be real. we're entertained when we see two guys giving it their all, in the center of the ring. That's what we want to see. Now, with that said, Floyd has, when you give him credit, he's 37 years old, 36, 37 years old. He's virtually been untouched. He stays in shape. He does all these things good. Now, he wants to claim, or he's self-proclaimed as the best ever to ever lace on a pair of gloves. He thinks he's the best. I just say that just by making all the money and just by finishing undefeated doesn't, in my opinion, doesn't give you that title. But what would is if he closed out his last 4 fights against anybody that's anyone, okay? For an example, people are going to say, well, he fought a young fighter. He fought Saul Alvarez. Well, Saul Alvarez was very green. He happened to have had a big following, and it made financial sense. But it also made sense for Floyd to fight him now, last year when he fought him. Because when and if they ever meet again, it's going to be a different fight. With that said, what all of this means is I believe that Shawn Porter is the guy. Shawn Porter is the guy that'll at least impress me. If Floyd manhandles Shawn Porter, if Floyd Mayweather is able to dictate that fight and make it boring and just make, pick shot, pick his shots and throw punches at will and land on Shawn Porter, then I'm going to give Floyd all the credit in the world. That's the fight I want to see. My question is Floyd man enough to fight Shawn Porter right now in September? I don't think he is. I think he's going to pick Danny Garcia. I predicted Danny Garcia after Danny Garcia's fight. Then they all teased us, we'll have a rematch with Maidana, only because that fight was entertaining. But I'm predicting Danny Garcia, but I'm praying for Shawn Porter. A couple other emails. In about 5-6 minutes, we're going to get Larry Hazard on the phone and get his thoughts on some stuff. If we're not done with the emails, we'll go back to it, but I think we may wrap them up right here. My man Bjorn says it's interesting hearing people speaking about Roy Jones Jr. now, because when he was in his prime, people said he was ducking Bernard. In the barbershop back then, they said he wasn't fighting the best. I remember the Ruiz fight, and everyone said, who? No one looked at that fight like he was challenging himself at the time, because Ruiz was not considered a top fighter, and Roy was considered a pound-for-pound best. And again, they said he was ducking Bernard. I was always arguing with people how good Roy was because of the time, because at the time he was my favorite fighter to watch. Now that he has declined, people talk about him totally different and give him his props. Well, first of all, he did fight. Roy Jones Jr. Did fight Bernard Hopkins. As a matter of fact, on this day back in 1993, he fought Bernard. And then I think they had another fight too. But the bottom line is, Bjorn is right. I know what his point is, and that's what happens when fighters, typically retire, and you have time to digest what they've accomplished. Roy Jones Jr. hasn't officially retired yet, but you got to give him props for what he accomplished. He basically controlled the middleweight, super middleweight, and light heavyweight divisions during his era, and he tried to do things outside the box. And John Ruiz, John Ruiz doesn't get the credit he deserves. Was he as good as a Riddick Bowe or Evander or Lennox Lewis? No. But you know what? John Ruiz beat Evander Holyfield. John Ruiz was a world heavyweight champion. If you're going to put value in somebody and call him a champion, regardless of who they are, then that is a valuable opponent. And I think that, the size difference alone, you got to give Roy Jones Jr. credit for fighting John Ruiz. As a matter of fact, John Ruiz holds a record or something. I think his last 15 fights, or 13 of his last 15 fights, were against either world champions, former world champions, or number 1 ranked world contenders. His last 15 fights, or 13 of his 15. That's pretty good, man. Anyway, thanks for the email, Bjorn. Justin says, hey, Billy C., it's Justin from Baltimore. I just read on BoxRec that Keith Thurman will be facing Marcus Maidana on September 13th, which would be on Floyd's undercard. If this information is accurate, what do you think about the fight? And do you think a win over Maidana will give Thurman the name recognition amongst the casual fan to get him a fight with Floyd? I kind of like the fight with Thurman and Maidana. Everybody's flipping out. People wanted to see a rematch. I don't want to see a rematch with Maidana and Floyd, because Floyd is not going to fight him the same way. He's going to fight him his normal, boring, cautious self, and he'll beat Maidana. I like Keith Thurman against Maidana because although I believe Keith Thurman has the skills, he also is young and gets coaxed into fighting these wars. I love that fight. To be honest with you, I love the fight. I'd be lying if I said, and you too will be able to watch the stream, will be able to watch the show without getting hassled with the stream. All the information about the channel can be found on our website, www.fightnow.com. Speaking of now, joining us, my man, Larry Hazard. What's up, brother?
Hey, Billy, what's going on, babe?
I'm just sick of this stream. It's down all the time. They can't, it's raining here, so the stream shits the bed. It's nerve wracking. People like you, they got to have the fight now, man. It's on. You got a perfect shot, right? So anyway, Juan Manuel Marquez. I was watching the fight last week and I was loving it. I'm sitting there going, oh my God, he looks great. He looks big. He looks strong. Wait a minute. He looks bigger. He's stronger. He's faster. Wait a minute. I'm like, wait a minute. He looks too damn good. What's your thoughts, man?
Well, we're living in that age now where these PEDs have become so much a part of the athletic arena that we look at a great performance by almost any athlete now, especially in individual sports. We look at that performance with an eye of suspicion. So, I don't know. I would like to think that Marquez just had turned in a tremendous performance. But, it's kind of strange because when athletes start to get older, he was displaying some things that athletes normally don't display as they get older. He had speed. He had it seemed like a greater sense of power, endurance. He seemed to display all of the things that play
with these solid shots that just didn't affect them, and it's just it reminded me of the fight against Pacquiao when he knocked out Pacquiao. He was taking a savage beating in that fight. I mean, he's disfigured, he's bleeding all over the place, and they weren't affecting him. I like him, and I hope that it's, hey, listen, I still believe we're innocent until proven guilty, and he hasn't tested positive yet, but man, he looks like that. And when you look at a 40-year-old or 40-plus-year-old fighter, and someone pointed it out early in the week, if you take a guy like B-Hop has taken care of his body. He's one of these guys that's always in good shape. He never has to, really, I got to train for a fight now, so I got to lose 50 pounds. Nah, he's always in good shape and everything else. And at his age, even though he's 10 years older, he's showing the signs of age to a degree. Yes, he's still fighting and nobody's knocked him out yet and everything. That's what keeps going. But he's not looking faster and bigger and stronger. He's beating people with his experience and technique. And we all know that he's become an 8-round fighter, but he's smart enough to make these other fighters give him 4 rounds off during a fight so he could, stay focused and stay with his gas,
And what B-Hop does, B-Hop, you don't see any of these enhanced skills of B-Hop.
No.
As a matter of fact, you begin to see the atrophy somewhat in his skills. But what B-Hop does, like you say, B-Hop has that ring intelligence that he starts right out at the beginning of a fight, and he gets these guys. It's almost like an unwritten agreement. It's a psychological aspect that he uses on these fighters. He gets them to almost agree an unwritten agreement that, okay, we're going to fight at this very slow pace so that I don't get tired. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And you're going to allow me to do all of these things. And they seem to just agree with him. You know, he ties them up. He maneuvers these guys around to a position where the referee can't see him, and then he hits them low, hits them behind the head. He does all of the little things that plays into his advantage. But what Juan Manuel did, he actually was fighting like a young fighter. I mean, you know, he was trading punches with this guy. You know, and he was, you know, his speed was up and down. I mean, he wasn't doing anything that an older fighter would go in to do strategically. You know, he went in like a young fighter, you know, and he fought the fight like a young fighter. That's what brings about the suspicion.
Yeah, I tell you, the thing I noticed the most, well, I mean, he walks like a bulldog. Do you ever see a bulldog walk? That's the way he walks. He's top heavy. He's become top heavy, you know. But it was the hand speed. The hand speed really. He was never really known for hand speed. He was known for
never.
He was known for his counterpunching ability and, you know, being able to time a fighter as the fight drags on, and he's got a solid chin. He's been dropped many times, but he gets up. So, you know, that kind of stuff doesn't surprise us. You know, his accuracy, that doesn't surprise me. But man, that hand speed, and like you mentioned, he just didn't get tired. You know, he kept just kicking it up another notch. You know, and here he's fighting a guy, you know, 10, 12 years younger than him, and he was getting tired. Let me ask you a question about Alvarado. Have you ever, when does a corner, when a fighter comes back to his corner and he's been dropped, and a corner has got the wherewithal to you know, seemingly be concerned about the fighter, and he sits him on the stool and he says, "You know where you are?" And your fighter says, "Nah." You know, I mean, is that kind of a? I mean, when do you say, "Okay, my kid's had enough"? And then he's moving on. He starts explaining where he is. You know what's going. You know, he's trying to help him like cheat on the test. You know, I mean, what was your thoughts when we saw that, man? I almost fell off my chair, man.
Well, hey Billy, you know, see, I've gotten used to these corners. I mean, and they become very interesting. And cornermen to me, many, I don't say all, but many cornermen to me have become like referees now. You know, they've gotten to the point where they know that camera's there. Many of them know that the sound is in the corner, and they seem like they go out of their way now to say stupid things. You know, there's this over excess of profanity that's being used in the corners, and very little real instructions that are being given. You know, it has become like a comedy hour between the referees, some referees, and some of these cornermen. It's really becoming a comedy, because if you take note and watch, you tell me, when is the last time you really heard some real, intricate, strategic instructions being given in the corner? You know, fighter comes back, and everything is laced with four-letter words, and it's like, well, doesn't this guy understand that the fighter already knows that he's getting his ass beat, or that the fighter knows that, you know, he's losing the fight, or this or that? Tell him what he has to do to win the fight. I mean, I be sitting there, and I be getting livid. And whenever there's guys sitting around with me watching the fight, they be laughing, they be looking at me, they be falling over, because, I be jumping up and down. Tell the kid what he has to do. You got to jab more. You got to fight inside. You know, you come over the top with the right hand. Use more combinations. When have you heard a real good cornerman giving good instructions since Eddie Futch has gone, Angelo Dundee has gone, and some of the other well-known cornermen who were real fight guys giving instructions in the corner?
No, you're right. You're right. My favorite is when the guy's getting his butt kicked, and he comes back, and his trainer looks at him and goes, "You're taking way too many punches, man. You got to start avoiding those shots." And the fighter's looking at him like, "You don't think I'm trying to avoid the shot?" I mean, it's like, it's ridiculous. That's why I've labeled him rah-rah, man. I just to get off this subject, I've been critical of Freddie Roach lately because he does some crazy things, but he's good in the corner. Like he focuses on one thing, and to give credit where credit's due. Floyd Mayweather, one of the things I've always been critical or actually questioned was what happens when the going gets tough. Floyd likes to control everything. Is he going to be smart in the corner? And he proved that to me, that he is, that the answer is yes, because in the Maidana fight, he did listen to his father. His Floyd Sr. said, "You got to go to the body. You got to start working the body." And not too many people talked about it, but he was landing some really solid body shots in that second half of the fight, and I think that kept Maidana off of Floyd more than some of the other things. But anyway, let's before I ask you about a couple of great fights this week, I want to throw some stuff at you real quick, and it might be tough, but here's the thing. You and I are both very similar. We don't pull any punches. It was brought to my attention, and I'm going to get into it a lot deeper as time goes on, but I got an interesting phone call today, and it was brought to my attention. I'm not going to mention names yet, but we will be in the future, and maybe it's something you and I should talk about off the air. But the New York State Athletic Commission has, as we all know, has brought in a new commissioner. And one of the battle cries for this new commissioner was, we got to cut expenses, and we got to do things right, and we got to make sure we're the Mago Abdul-Zamov things don't happen, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And it was brought to my attention today that the realistically the main people of the commission, only a couple of them really are boxing people. They got rid of them. They're not there anymore, okay? And like I said, we'll get into names and stuff later. And they hired, they get rid of 2 people, and they replaced them with double that, with 4, all making big salary. I ask you this. Do you think that the New York State Athletic Commission, that the problem they have isn't really individuals, it's more of the political aspect of the commission? And if you think so, is it like that in all commissions?
It's not like that. Well, I can tell you from personal experience, it was not like that in New Jersey while I was there. I was allowed to run the commission, and I would like to think that the powers that be realized that I was a real boxing guy who had the background, who had the experience, and knew what he was doing. I really would like to feel that way, okay? It's a known fact. It is a known fact that the commission in many states is highly political. Now, I don't think that it's that way in Pennsylvania, because Greg Serb has pretty much had the run of the commission there. At least I'm not talking in terms of his knowledge, but at least he has been left to make the decisions. And the decisions that have been made in most parts, I believe, were his decisions, whether you agree with them or not. In Nevada, I can tell you it is highly political. It is totally political. And they make it clear to the executive director in Nevada that you work for the commissioners, which there are 3 or few, who are appointed by the governor, who probably know very little about the sport, but you work for them. And all of the executive directors that I've known in the past, and I've known most of them very closely in Nevada, the only one that I felt had pretty much a run of his own based on his own experience and knowledge was a guy named Mark Ratner, who is no longer there. He left. It becomes a big surprise as the governors change in New York. The chairman, I think that's the position that Melvina Lathan holds, the one that Randy Gordon held, the one that Ron Scott Stevens, Floyd Patterson, and all the guys down the way. It was the commission chairperson, who always changed with the governor. And so now they've created this new position, this executive director, who is supposed to be the individual to run the day-to-day operation. And of course, all of these recent changes, from my knowledge, is coming about as a result of the unfortunate situation that happened with Mago, the fighter.
Right.
Okay?
Right. I agree. I think a lot of it started, but check this out. The new guy that they were brought in as the big cheese, so to speak. They're saying, oh, he's a boxing guy, Teddy Atlas, because he's a supporter of the Teddy Atlas Foundation.
He's not a boxing guy. I don't mean to cut you off.
No, but listen.
But I will say this: he is not a boxing guy. He's a lawyer.
I'm not disagreeing with you, but listen to this. The reason why they call him a boxing guy is because Teddy's given him his stamp of approval, because he funds some programs with Teddy's foundation. But the other thing is that they claim he was a boxing guy because he was managing fighters in the past. But I found out today that he's still managing fighters. So let me ask you this: how can a guy be actively involved as a manager or even advisor or even as a gym owner and being the guy that's in charge of the commission? To me, that's a conflict of interest. What do you think?
That is a total conflict of interest if it's true. Okay? I mean, that's a no-brainer right there. Now, it's my understanding that this guy, and the name is familiar, but it's my understanding that this guy, in his capacity as a lawyer, represented some former fighters, Iran Barkley and some others, to my understanding.
That's exactly right.
I had no idea that he was a manager. Well, now, if it's true that he is still a manager, then that is without a doubt, a conflict of interest, and it doesn't take a rocket scientist to see that.
Right.
Okay.
Well, we're gonna be talking about some of these things as time goes on, because it is exactly that. And yeah, he was a lawyer. They say, oh yeah, he's a lawyer. He represented, but they forget. It's not like he represented in a case against the state or a case against the glove manufacturer. He represented him in negotiations. For fights and stuff.
Well,
so.
Yeah. Well, yeah. He represented fighters. When fighters have contract disputes and all, the regular representation that a lawyer gives a fighter. And most of the time, a lot of the times, it does not mean that these lawyers are that well-versed.
Fight on the undercard that we'll be able to see. But anyway, the fights that I wanted to ask you about are what I think everybody's focused on this week, and that's the Boxcino finals, the tournament finals. First, in the lightweight division, Peter Petrov is going up against Fernando Corcamo, and both of these guys have fought their way. Now, Petrov is a fighter that people were leaning towards because of his pedigree. And he's been in some tough fights. This lightweight group of fighters that they had were all very talented. He's going up against Corcamo, who has fought and earned his spot. From basing what we've seen from these guys throughout this tournament, both of these fights seem pretty even. Who do you like in the lightweight between Peter Petrov and Fernando Corcamo, and why?
Well, I like Petrov because he appears to be the more rugged of the two guys. Okay, skill-wise, I think these guys are pretty much on the par. But I think Petrov, from what I've seen, I like Petrov. He looks to be a little bit stronger. He looks a bit, he just looks to be a little more aggressive. And I think in the long run, I think he'll come out the winner. It'll probably go down to a decision. But I pick Petrov in this one.
And then in the middleweight final, This fight features two guys that really were underdogs going in. I personally know Willie Monroe and his team, and I was like following him because the late Johnny Boz told me about Willie Monroe long before he was in this position, and I got an opportunity last time they were at Turning Stone to meet the team, and it's a good group of guys. And Willie Monroe, he seemingly has versatile talent, versatile skill set, but he's going up against Brandon Adams, who's clearly become the favorite. He's been an underdog. Nobody gave this kid a chance, including myself, from day one. And every single fight, he seemingly looks better and better. He's happy to be involved in this, and he's a strong young kid that may give Willie Monroe some problems. Who do you like in this fight, and why?
Well, I like maybe it's because of the sentimental aspect. Well, I was pretty good friends with the Worm, his uncle. Willie Monroe is, so he has that pedigree, and I like the Monroe pedigree, and he's not a bad fighter. He's not the traditional Philadelphia guy because the kid is really not from Philadelphia, I don't think. But the family, of course, has its roots in Philadelphia, and as you know, his uncle was one of the great middleweights out of Philly. And if I'm not mistaken, didn't his uncle beat Marvin Hagler in one of the fights?
I thought one of them early on. I thought he did. did.
Yeah, because Marvin fought all the great Philly middleweights. Marvin really came through the fire. And but I like the Monroe pedigree in this fight, and he's not a bad fighter. He has some decent skills, But I know he would be, in my opinion, I think Monroe would probably be the underdog in this particular fight. But I have to go with him to pull it out.
Yeah, he's the nephew, but he lives in the Buffalo, Rochester area.
Okay.
Monroe.
Yeah.
And he's, when I first saw him coming in, I mean, I liked him because of all the accolades Johnny Boz told me about him. But then when I was, looking at it, breaking down and looking at the fight, I was like, well, he really hasn't fought anybody and everything else. But I learned a lot about this kid, and he's good. For where he's at, this is a great matchup. And like I said, Brandon Adams has got pop. He's got power. And it's going to be an interesting fight. I'm looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to both these fights. I think they did a good job. What do you think, man?
I think they did an excellent job. And as we've talked in the past, these are the types of things that keeps the fan interest high on the sport of boxing. And I think that this Boxcino thing was a very, very good thing for the sport of boxing. And as you can see, some of the talent that has surfaced from this tournament makes you have a greater level of appreciation for the sport, and it shows you that our sport still has a lot of promise. And we need more of these types of tournaments. I'd like to see even some of the state championships come back. You don't have to get into a whole lot of sanctioning and ratings and all. Just to keep that interest, that fan interest level up. And I think that this Boxcino tournament has proven that. And I like to see more and more of it.
Yeah, me too. I agree with everything you said. And you know what I like about this? It's seemingly, and you got to give the matchmaker, Eric Botcher, who did the matchmaking on this tournament, you got to give him credit because what he did was he took these guys that, maybe they didn't sign with a promoter, so they were kind of, how it is. If you don't sign with a guy, you're not getting put on cards. All of a sudden it becomes hard to find fights, and, they don't, I'm not going to say they blacklist you, but they kind of blacklist you. And he was able to find, enough fighters in both of these weight classes that, didn't have those contracts in place and everything else. And I think it shows that you're right, that we do have some talented fighters. If they actually fight each other and there's a purpose, and they're trying to win and they're trying to prove that they're the best and they're not just going through the motions, beating up on cupcakes, I think that the end result here is both of these winners and even the losers have already established themselves as quality fighters.
Yes. And I think that even the losers, they are proof positive that losing does not always mean it's the end of a career. And a little note on Eric Botcher. I didn't know that Eric was the matchmaker here. But, you know, here's another guy. Here's a guy who I knew Eric for years and years back, you know, back when in New Jersey. And I saw him not long ago in Atlantic City. And here's a guy who has been one of those struggling young matchmakers who's been around the sport for years. But whenever Eric worked, because he used to, you know, work from promoter to promoter, you know what I mean? He was one of those type of guys that was like a hired hand, you know, would make matches for various promoters. And I always had a great deal of confidence in this guy. He's a young guy. I always had a great deal of confidence in his matchmaking abilities when he would bring fights to Atlantic City, whether it be for Frank Gelb or for Russell Peltz, you know, because he used to matchmake for different promoters. And this shows that he has really come a long way with what he's done with this tournament.
Yeah, no, he's did a great job. Larry, we got to take a break. Have a great Memorial Day, and we'll look forward to you next week, my man.
Okay, Billy, you do the same.
All right, brother, take care. That's Larry Hazard. I got to take a break. We'll be back in 2.
Join us here for 2 hours as Billy and the gang do what they do best.
Every time I start talking about boxing, a white man got to pull Rocky Marciano out the ass. Rocky Marciano was good, but compared to Joe Louis, Rocky Marciano ain't.
Hit Joe Louis's ass.
Joe Louis was 75 years old when he fought.
Huh?
What? We're supposed to be talking boxing.
It's Talking Boxing with Billy C.
As Billy C sits here in the multi-million-dollar Talkin' Boxing Studios, sipping a fine wine before you're even out of bed, you should be thinking, damn, I wish I had a mustache like his. It's the Talkin' Boxing with Billy C show. He's Billy C, and you're not. Sucks to be you.
Now let's dig into our archives and hear a rare interview when Billy C first became the champion of boxing talk radio. Hello, Billy C. As the new champ, can we ask you a few questions?
Why, certainly.
Okay, your fans would like to know how you and your corner have successfully walloped the competition.
We're not ordinary people. We're morons.
Anything else?
I'm a victim of circumstance.
Did your success finally come when you made the show 5 days a week for 2 hours? What do you think?
I'm trying to think, but nothing happens.
Now, please tell the listeners what you've learned from making it this far.
Certainly. If at first you don't succeed, keep on sucking till you do succeed.
Great words of wisdom, Billy C. Keep up the great work as the undisputed People's Champion with your show, Talkin' Boxing with Billy C. Any last words to anyone who's listening?
This is your fault, you bonehead.
And we're back. You're listening. The gold medalist in London Games from Japan, middleweight Ryota Murata, he improved to 4-0 with 4 knockouts with his fourth win, obviously, 4-0 with 4 knockouts, by knocking out Jesus Nerio at 2 minutes and 35 seconds of the 6th round. Nerio drops to 12-4. And also the co-main event, also a Japanese fighter, an undefeated Japanese fighter, Sohohi Omori, improved to 12-0 with 7 knockouts when he stopped Christian Esquivel at 1 minute and 35 seconds of the 4th round. Esquivel drops to 27-5 with 20 knockouts. So 2 big wins for some young Japanese fighters in Japan that took place tonight. Or I should say took place last night if you're in Japan, or it's going to take place tonight if you're in New York. I don't know. It already happened. You know, I was just talking to my man Larry Hazard about these tournaments and stuff, and, you know, the popularity with the Boxcino tournament has definitely spread. We all got the taste when the Super 6 tournament came out, and then the Showtime learned, that the Super 6 tournament dragged on too long and injuries and everything else. And then they had that bantamweight, a super bantamweight tournament that only lasted two times because it was 4 fighters. And that seemed to be the blueprint. I'm going to talk about several other tournaments that are happening as we speak, and some that are projected to happen this year, coming up in a little bit. But first, joining us right now with his weekend boxing roundup is my man Dax Khan. What's up, Dax?
I'm drowning.
Yeah. Well, you know what? It's better than snow. So anyway, what do you got going on with the weekend boxing schedule roundup?
All right, short but sweet. I'm starting off at the Turning Stone Casino in Verona. The ESPN Boxcino lightweight middleweight finals is going to take place. Undefeated Brandon Adams is going to face Willie Monroe Jr. in the middleweight portion. In the lightweight portion, Peter Petrov will meet Fernando Carcamo. Also, heavyweight prospect Nate Haven, who was on the last card in Verona, is going to be in there. We don't know much about him, but I'll tell you what, he was an exciting kid. He could really punch. Out in Montebello, California, and an all-star boxing card, Cleotis Pandoris meets Vernon Paris. Saturday in Buenos Aires, Argentina. OR Promotions airs a card on Argentine TY Sports. Light middleweight Luciano Leonel Coelho faces unbeaten Martin Riddell Rios. In Montreal, on Showtime, GYM Promotions has their guy, light heavyweight champion Adonis Stevenson, defending against Andre Fonfara, David Lemieux, and Fernando Guerrero, battle for the vacant NABF middleweight title in the co-feature, and also light heavyweight Eldir Alvarez and unbeaten welterweight Michael Zuski will be in action separately. And also light middleweight Jamal Charlo is going to take on Charlie Oda. In Tijuana, Baja California, Mexico, on Mexico Azteca, Xanderford Promotions will have David Sanchez defending his interim WBA World Super Flyweight title against Brilio Turan. And Super Bantamweight Jackie Nava will meet Elise Sanchez. In Guerrero, Mexico, on the same night, Duel Pueblo Promotions has Yanni Gonzalez putting his WBC featherweight title down against unbeaten Clive Atwell. And in the Philippines, Jethro, as you said, we spoke before, down in the Albany area, you got some good guys down there. You got like Nick Brinson. Even if they can get something in there with Amir Imam and stuff like that up in there, that would really help out the local, the local scene, because, they're all local guys. And, there's some talent locally in the upstate area, none overabundant. So, the ones that are on, everybody's going to flock to. And in my opinion, I always thought about with that venue, another good thing is, up in that area, Canastota is not too far. And, they're trying to, the only time of year really that you see boxing on fire up there is, where the Hall of Fame weekend. And, I think they can, if they market it right, like you were saying, they can really, make upstate, thriving again like it once was, back in, the 40s and 50s and 60s.
Yeah, I think that particular venue is good because it is in the middle of nowhere. So if you can bring a good enough show there that would attract people to your place, and I'm saying the place meaning the Turning Stone, you got a captive audience. It's not like they can go up the street to go to a restaurant. I mean, it's just nothing there. I mean, once you're there, you got to stay there. It's similar to nothing for nothing, but it's similar to Mohegan Sun and Foxwoods. When you get to those casinos, there's nothing else around there either. So it's all relative for the area. But hey, I'm going to give you
seat in the house. Sorry to interrupt.
No. I was going to say about Brinson. I wanted to comment on Brinson because I agree with you. And something that I found out during the last show up at Turning Stone was that Nick Brinson has actually been signed by the Turning Stone. He's they're officially his promoter now. And since they signed him, I haven't seen him. I haven't seen him fight. There's been 3 shows at Turning Stone in which he wasn't on any of the cards. That makes no sense to me.
Well, it's funny because, as I told you not too long ago, I spoke with my old buddy Vince Kittle, and that was one of the things that Vince was talking about. Saying how Nick, how good he was, and how hard of a worker he is, and stuff like that. That he'd really like to see more of him in that area. Whether it be the Capital District area, or up by the Turning Stone area, because Nick is the type of kid that he really can bring in the fans, because he's likable and he improves with every outing and stuff. He's a pretty exciting fighter. So, it just makes no sense. It makes you want to bang your head against the wall. It's one of those, like, if I had this kid under my contract, this is what I would do.
Yeah, no, I hear you. You know, because he was exciting. We were both there for that fight, and you know where actually the referee Charlie Fitch, who I think is a good referee, he did the right thing in that fight. I thought that Brinson deserved to get that extra couple of seconds. You know, same thing with Cunningham. It's not right. It's against the rules, but sometimes you gotta make an adjustment. But anyway,
and Mikey's another one that was, you know, as a kid he was on all our cards up there and stuff. So you know, really, I'm excited to see those guys. You know, now you know how they progress. I really am.
Last week, Juan Manuel Marquez fought Mike Alvarado in a pretty entertaining fight. I mean, it was one of those one-sided entertaining fights. And like I was just talking to Larry earlier, you know, I was watching the fight, and I'm a Marquez fan. I also like Alvarado. You know, I like Alvarado. And as I'm watching, I'm saying, man, you know, Alvarado, he's so much bigger. He's seemingly so much stronger. He's younger. You know, why isn't he imposing his will on this guy? And then I'm watching Juan Manuel Marquez, and I'm saying, oh, man, he looks great. You know, he's got the movement. He's got the power. He's in great shape. He's got this hand speed. And then I was like, wait a minute. He's got more hand speed than I've ever seen him have before. And then all the accusations and everybody's thinking, now this guy's never tested positive. What's your opinion of where Juan Manuel Marquez is at? Are we just seeing a guy that is seemingly naturally getting better and better, or do you think there's some other things going on?
I said this the night of the fight. You know, there's something else going on. Eventually, it's going to come out. You know, there's a few things. One, his name off the top of my head has just slipped me because I'm on the spot here. Strength and conditioning guy, where he's made public statements about he can put together any type of supplement that, you know, he can make it so it's undetectable. Not only that, you know. And people will sit there and use the comparison of Bernard Hopkins, saying, you know, well, look at Bernard Hopkins at his age. There's a difference. Bernard Hopkins isn't getting faster. He isn't getting stronger. He wins his fights, you know, using ring intelligence and smarts. You know, Juan Manuel Marquez, he has that ability to do that, but you know what? I'm sorry. You don't get faster. You don't get bigger. You don't get stronger, you know, especially as you're moving up in weight as you get older. You know what I mean? As you get older, if you're moving up in weight and you have a lot of power, we all know the last thing on a fighter to go is the power. But, you know, not only is he getting bigger and stronger, but he's getting faster. There's something wrong there. Either he has bionics or he's on something. That's just my opinion. There's no proof, but, you know, that's how I feel. As far as Mike Alvarado, I think the last time we spoke about this, I said if Mike Alvarado starts fast, that would be his best shot, and that's what he should have. He should have started fast. I think he tried to box Marquez, which is a big mistake. You're not going to outbox Juan Manuel Marquez. You know, that's a tall order for anybody. You know, so, but when he did stand there and trade and go toe-to-toe, you know, he hurt Marquez. He hurt Marquez more than once, and that was late after Alvarado ate a lot of shots, after Alvarado hit the canvas. You know, so if Alvarado would have went after Marquez like that in the beginning, I think he'd have stopped him.
You know, I agree with you, and we can't even really, although I didn't think his corner should win any awards for being a great corner, they were telling him that. They were saying, you know, you're bigger, you're stronger, you know, he doesn't want to do this. And you know, it almost seemed like they were waiting for Marquez to tire, and he didn't. And you know, the more I looked at Alvarado, the more I was thinking that it wasn't so much the game plan or lack of. You know, some people said they didn't have a game plan. Some people blame the corner. I think that the blame really should be on Mike Alvarado. I think that he's got some mental issues going on, and I don't mean serious mental issues. I mean in the ring, where maybe, you know, like they use the term, you can't pull the trigger, he can't do this, he can't do that. Something similar to that. You know, he was in a war. I think the Prodankov fight may have made him a little gun shy, you know, and maybe he doesn't want to take the shots. I don't know, but I saw something that's not the same with him.
Well, we've seen it in the Brandon Rios fights too. You know, the first one, you know, he went to war. You know, Brandon Rios, who just has a tremendous chin. You know, so there was no shame in that. And the next one, you know, where he boxed more, and you know, he beat Brandon Rios by outboxing him. But if you notice in that fight, when he was moving around, you know, he had great footwork, you know, and used the full ring to his advantage. But he wasn't punching while he was doing it. You know, it's great to use your feet. It's great to move around the ring. You know, if you got 16 by 16, 18 by 18, 20 by 20, whatever it is, utilize it all if that's what's keeping you safe and out of trouble. But you know what, while you're using it, throw that jab out there more, and he didn't do that. As far as the game plan goes, I think it was the perfect game plan, but it was in reverse. He should have came out like a ball of fire, and then once he hurt Marquez a few times, wore him down a little bit, with his size advantage and stuff like that, then he could have went to try and box him. I think that would have been more effective. Guaranteed win, no, but I think it would have been more effective.
He had the arm reach. He was way bigger. It looked like he was 3 weight classes bigger than Juan Manuel Marquez. And I agree with you. I think he should have came out fast and furious. I think he should have manhandled him. I think he made a mistake. But speaking of making a mistake, I think Showtime is thinking they made some mistakes recently. And one of them might be with the card that they have that they're going to be showing. Now, with all due respect, the undercard, the one fight to me, is interesting. The David Lemieux against Fernando Guerrero fight. And the reason why it's interesting to me is because David Lemieux is a punching power. He's a power punching guy. He was coddled. He had some management issues, training issues with Russ Ambert. He switched it. He's lost a couple of fights, even to fighters he wasn't supposed to. And then he's fighting Fernando Guerrero. Now, Guerrero was a hot prospect out of Salisbury, Maryland, and when he fought at home, this guy sold the place out. He was exciting, seemingly had the skill set until he reminded me actually of Donald Curry a lot. I mean, his style and everything. But then when he stepped up his level of opposition, he kind of fell a little short too. Well, they're fighting each other, so I'm kind of interested in that. It looks like we got a classic power puncher against a boxer. What's your thoughts on the fight, and who do you think's going to win? First of all, how do you think the fight's going to go? And second of all, who do you think's going to win?
I don't really think a lot of David Lemieux, to be honest with you. I think he's kind of a built-up, homegrown product. And, yeah, you're exactly right. Anytime that Guerrero has stepped up, he's lost. But, look who he has lost to. Peter Quillen and Grady Brewer. Matter of fact, I think in his last outing, he beat the guy that Brandon Adams just beat, Raymond Gatissa. As far as his punching power goes, it's not bad, but he hasn't really knocked out anybody elite. He does hold the win over Ishe Smith, for whatever that's worth. So, and to me, it's a 50-50 fight because you never know what version of David Lemieux is going to show up, and you never know what version of Fernando Guerrero is going to show up. But I think at their best, if they both come in tip-top at their best, I'd have to lean towards Guerrero.
Yeah, if Guerrero can stay away from... Listen, whether you like Lemieux or not, and whether you think he's been coddled or not, and there's arguments for all those cases, the one thing we all can agree on is that he's a power puncher. He's clearly got some pop, and that's Fernando Guerrero's weakness. But Fernando Guerrero can punch. He's got hand speed. He can box. He's got good footwork. The trick is going to be, can David Lemieux cut the ring off? Can Fernando Guerrero stay away? Can Fernando Guerrero outbox him and use Lemieux's aggression against him, or can Lemieux wear down Guerrero? It may be. I think it's going to be the fight of the night, honestly.
Yeah, I think so because, it's going to end up in a knockout, and plus, all the factors that you just talked about. As far as, David Lemieux, his chin is suspect himself. I mean, Guerrero is not a huge puncher, but, he's a big puncher, better than average. I think he has, 20 or 19 or 20 of his, 26 wins by knockout, but he has been stopped both times. Lemieux, when he was stopped, he was stopped by Marco Antonio Rubio, but, it wasn't the best version of Rubio. And then right after that, he lost the decision to Alcine, and it was, again, not nowhere near the best version of Alcine. So, I just have to say, it's a toss-up on, whoever brings their A game, but I'm still going to lean towards Guerrero.
Yeah, no, that's cool. That's cool. I've always liked Guerrero.
I'll say people at the time at the main event, Adonis Stevenson won by knockout, 2 seconds in the first round.
I think, yeah, and I have no interest in that fight. Zero. I think it's a joke. I really do. But the fights that I don't think are a joke are the two that are on ESPN. And, I really love this tournament. I love everything about it. I love the fighters, the style, what we got in terms of entertainment, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So now I ask you, in the lightweight final, Peter Petrov is going up against Fernando Carcamo. Both of these fights are seemingly evenly matched. Petrov actually was a favorite going into this, so he's where everyone thought he was. Carcamo, nobody's shocked, but he wasn't a favorite. Who do you like in this one?
From the start, I thought Petrov was going to win. He has decent power. Nothing great, but if you give him the opportunity, he's great. He's a terrific finisher. He showed when he just walked through Chris Rudd pretty much, in that fourth round. And, he has the better amateur pedigree, and, he's more versatile as an overall fighter, in my opinion. So I think Petrov, if he can get out of, the first two rounds, which I think, Carcamo's going to come out there and try and take his head off, I think Petrov is pretty much going to coast to a unanimous decision after that. And
in the fight that I'm really looking forward to in the middleweight division, Willie Monroe Jr. is going up against clearly the underdog of this whole tournament. I don't think anybody can argue with that. Brandon Adams was not expected to even get past the very first fight he was in when he fought Daniel Edouard. And since then, no one had given him a chance for any of the fights, and here he is in the finals. And like in all the fights previously, I'm not giving him much of a chance against Monroe, but he's proven me wrong every time. Is he going to prove me wrong Friday night?
If he... he won a split decision against Gatisa, but, what really impressed me about that is he had to adjust during the fight. That's what impressed me, and for a guy that only has 14 knockouts, including his 14 wins, including the 2 that took place during the Boxcino tournament, I was really impressed with that. He was getting pretty steadily outboxed in the beginning, and then he adjusted. And that, to me, that just showed that, he might have a better ring intelligence than we know. If I'm not really too sure about his amateur background, Willie Monroe Jr., I like him. He's talented, but I just think that Brandon Adams is the sleeper in this, and that's what this tournament's all about. You know what I mean? Creating a new star where we didn't think of. I think Willie Monroe Jr. in this, I think he might not be as hungry as Brandon Adams because, Willie Monroe, even if he loses this, it's not the end of the road for him, Brandon Adams needs this, to make a statement to further his career. So I'm going to go with Brandon Adams just on the basis of his last fight, not the Daniel Edouard fight, but his last fight and how he did adjust, and just the fact that, he needs this, to make himself a star. He doesn't have, the big group around him that Willie Monroe does or the amateur pedigree.
Yeah, who did he fight in the last one? Gatica?
Gatica, yeah. Remember, Gatica in the beginning was really getting to him. He was he had some, I guess, moves of more experience. He was a little bit dirty. He had frustrated him, and then, in the second round, towards the end of it, Brandon kind of changed his game plan a little bit, and by the fourth round, he kind of took over. So, yeah, it was a really good fight, and in the beginning when that fight started, I thought Gatica was just going to pick him apart, and then, like I said, he adjusted, and he ended up he ended up showing really what he's made of, not only in the ability to adjust, but he showed he had heart instead of getting frustrated and just saying, "Now the hell with it."
Yeah, Gatica is a decent fighter, and I think that Brandon Adams has gotten better since he's been in this tournament, So, hey, listen, I'm looking forward to it. I know I'm going to be ringside. You're going to be ringside. So at least we'll get to see another great show up at Turning Stone. We have some other tough fights on the challenge this week, but it's a close month, man. Everybody's battling out for the win here for the challenge. I wanted to ask you one more question. Matt Korobov is fighting on June 28th against Jose Uzcategui, and Uzcategui is a decent fighter. Matt Korobov had a lot of interest in him. He's undefeated at 23-0 in the middleweight division. He's had some injury issues. He's had some management problems, and all of a sudden he's 31 years old. Is he the real deal? I mean, people were comparing him to Triple G when he came out, and he's just never lived up to that. What's your thoughts on this guy?
I think he's talented. Well, Triple G, no. I mean, that's totally different class. But we'll have to see. Right now, it's the do or die point in his career, like you said. At the age of 31. So we'll have to see what happens on that. But I like him. I think he's talented. He has the potential. But it's a do or die for him. So he has right now at this point in time in his career, he has no room for a margin of error. So if he doesn't do it now, he's never going to do it. But I like him. I'd like to see him succeed, and I think he offers a lot of good competition with some of these other guys out there. I think he makes the division more interesting.
Yeah, no, I agree with you there. I agree with you 100%. Dax, I'll be seeing you tomorrow night.
Before we go, just speaking of people that age and they seem to get better at age, I just want to give a big congratulations to my pal Alicia Ashley on her KO win last night. 46 years old, and you know what? She's still out there schooling these girls. And not only did she win, an outbox her, but she knocked this girl out. So you know what? Great job, champ.
Yeah, well, she certainly doesn't look 46. You shocked me when you told me she was 46. But anyway, hey, when they pass if they pass the tests and they're able, why shouldn't they get an opportunity? As long as they passed all the medicals, everything's cool. So anyway,
absolutely.
Dax, I'll be seeing you tomorrow night up at Turning Stone, my man.
Absolutely. Everybody enjoy your weekend fights.
Take care. That's Dax Khan. You can check him out on Thursdays right here on the Talking Boxing with Billy C show. Now, listen, we're going to be taking a short break. I want to get your thoughts. In the beginning of the show, I was talking about we got several emails about the rumor of Keith Thurman fighting Marcos Maidana. Initially, I liked the fight. I got to be honest. I love that fight. All right. I listen. Let's be honest, all right? Was Mayweather an entertaining fight? Yes, it was. It certainly was. Do people want to see it again? When you see an exciting fight and it's close and the fight's over, everybody says rematch. Truthfully, I wasn't one of those people. Did I enjoy the performance by Maidana? Yes. Did I enjoy the performance by Floyd? Yes. As a matter of fact, it was my favorite Floyd Mayweather fight to date was the fight against Maidana. But I don't want to see it again because Floyd is not going to fight the same way against Maidana. Why should he? He doesn't have to. He could have fought that same way, okay? So when the rumor about, and just because it's up on BoxRec doesn't mean it's happening, but somebody has mentioned it, and that's how it got up there. But Keith Thurman against Marcos Maidana, I like the fight. It's a good fight. It's a good matchup. It's a good test for Keith Thurman. It's a good test for Marcos Maidana. Does he keep moving on? Does he keep going the way he is? Keith Thurman is a really good boxer, but he has a tendency to get sucked into brawls. Can Maidana make it a brawl? I want to see that fight. I do. I like it. Now, as far as Floyd goes, there is some possibility that he fights Shawn Porter. That's the fight I want to see. I want to see Floyd fight Shawn Porter. Check this out. If Floyd Mayweather fights Shawn Porter on September 13th and Keith Thurman fights Marcos Maidana, that's what we could potentially see. If Porter fights Mayweather and it becomes a good fight, and let's just say Mayweather wins the fight, okay? He's going to be the favorite, and he should be able to win the fight. If he wins that fight and Thurman wins the fight against Maidana, and then Floyd fights Thurman, well, then guys like me have to shut the F up, don't we? Because then Floyd Mayweather would have been fighting young guns, old guns, all the guns. And I'll tell you what, I'll be the first to give him the credit.
If you want your voice heard on Talking Boxing with Billy C., then call our hotline at 845-228-8710. Leave a voicemail, or you could just tell Billy C. that you like his mustache.
Should I ask you your opinion about this idea?
I'm just trying to give you the encouragement.
Listen, all I need from you is to make sure you don't hang up on people.
And if we like your call, we'll play it back on the air.
Billy, you have the knowledge and wisdom of boxing because of what you do and how well you do it.
Leave your name, hometown, and what you think of the show. 845-228-8710. We want to hear you.
Hey, fight fans, check out KOFantasyBoxing.com. KO Fantasy Boxing is boxing's only trademarked fantasy game. Check it out, www.KOFantasyBoxing.com. Select your own gym, your own fighters. Track them through a season that can last from 3 months to a year, depending upon which league you join. You got to check this out, man. www.kofantasyboxing.com. Join it today. Again, www.kofantasyboxing.com, and tell them Billy C sent ya.
The one, the only, Don King.
Makes me feel good, Billy, to have you, the n°1 show in the country, talking boxing with Billy. So I invite each and every American that's listening to this great show to tune in, because we want you to be there with Billy and me.
Now back to Talking Boxing with Billy C. He may not have an Excellence in Broadcasting award, but the night's still young. And he's got martinis. So you never know what may be by morning. It's Talking Boxing with Billy C. Talking Boxing with Billy C.
And we're back. You're listening to the Talking Boxing with Billy C show. You're watching us on the Fight Now television channel. Glad you could join us. Hey, listen, speaking of joining us, if you have any thoughts on the potential Mayweather-Shawn Porter fight, which I'm hoping for, man, because I like the matchup, and I think the best man may the best man win. That's all I'm going to say. You know, may the best man win. And if Floyd Mayweather beats Shawn Porter, I have to give him credit, because who else could I complain that he hasn't fought? You know, I could complain that he hasn't fought Pacquiao, but everybody will complain about that. We know that he hasn't fought Pacquiao. But if you take Pacquiao out of the mix, you know, who else you want him to see him fight? You know, I mean, he's not going to do something great like fight a Triple G or something like that. So we can only expect him to fight the guys around him. And the young guns that are around him, that are title holders and everything else, you can't say, oh, they don't deserve it, they're not ready. No, you can't say it, because if you're going to say that he's a world champion, well, then he's ready. So I say Porter against Mayweather, Thurman against Maidana in the co-main event. Well, right off the bat, if those two fights are made, I'm telling you right now, I'm going to be telling you guys to order it right now, because it'll be a good one. What's your thoughts? Give us a call, 845-228-8710, 845-228-8710. The WBC, you know how I'm always saying that, you know, we need continuity in boxing. You know, we the individualism, or, you know, separation of the sport. And, you know, we got it happening with promoter against promoter, network versus network, network versus network, and promoter versus promoter. You can almost accept, because it's business. You know, a network isn't going to be buddies with their rival network. You know, they're both vying for the same business. But a promoter sometimes should work with another promoter to get the best fights and everything else. But, you know, so you got a division there. You got all these sanctioning bodies. You got different rules, different regulations, different rankings, different fighters that are being touted as number 5 world ranked contender, etc., etc., etc. Well, what irks me a lot is when these sanctioning bodies, specifically the ones that we look upon as the main 4, the top 4, they do something, and it's specifically the 2 of the top 4 that are always doing something crazy to make it like it's all about them. Now, the WBC is the worst culprit. The WBA is just, in my opinion, the WBA is really, I don't think they have any credibility at all. I really don't. With the way they move fighters around, and you know, all of a sudden insert somebody in, and the way they give out interim belts, like, you know, the way nobody here gives out championship belts on Halloween. You know, I mean, you know, the bottom line is they just they're a joke, in my opinion, the WBA. But the WBC is constantly trying to make it like they are boxing. that the sport revolves around them. For an example, they make the statement with Adrian Broner. Yes, they're able to strip him of his title. Yes, they're able to drop him out of the rankings and all of that stuff. But do they do it? If Golden Boy went up to them and said, hey, we want Broner to fight for X and Y, Z title, here's the sanctioning fee, I guarantee you the WBC is going to do it because they're nothing more than greedy guys, just like most people in the sport. But check this out. They announced today that they are going to be looking to take gloves, boxing gloves, and make a 30-round limit on gloves before that they're not able to be used anymore. Now, I don't know if you know this or not, but a lot of promoters reuse gloves. Generally, for a championship fight, a promoter's using brand new gloves, brand new. I mean, I don't think I've ever been at a boxing event, involved with the event where I'm in the meetings, I see the gloves being chosen, et cetera, et cetera. I don't think I've ever been involved with a major fight. It doesn't even have to be a world title, just a major fight, a main event. A world title event. And I've been in some one-horse town commissions. I won't mention Arkansas, but geez, Maine. Oh God, these commissions, because I used to do shows there, But the truth of the matter is I've always seen new gloves used. So the WBC is starting to say, well, we're going to limit each glove to 30 rounds, which means, if a glove is used, and it goes the distance. You got 12 rounds. So what happens if they're using 30 rounds, and they're in championship fights? So you go through two fights. You got 24. All right, so you only got 6 rounds left on a pair of gloves. You're not going to let a promoter use those gloves because they didn't reach 30 yet. If they do, they'll be 36. Listen. The bottom line is this: the WBC doesn't need to voice these things, in my opinion. They don't need to voice these things. They don't need to say, listen, if I'm a promoter and I'm dealing with this sanctioning body, the WBC, and they start handing down. Now, you do realize that the WBC, they want to control who the judges are. They want to control who the referee is for their fights and stuff. So now the promoter, that burden falls on the promoter. I don't know if you realize that. The promoter who's putting on the show. Now, everybody's always blaming the promoter. The promoter, he's robbing. Well, everybody thinks all promoters are crooks. You mention promoter and 2 guys pop in your head. Don King and Bob Arum, and everybody thinks they're crooks. They're crooks. For some reason, Richard Schaefer and Golden Boy and Oscar De La Hoya are not considered crooks yet, even though they're the same. A promoter is in business to make money. All right, let's be real. They don't have to be crooks, but they're in business to make money. They're laying out money. They're getting all their fees and license fees and bonds and et cetera, et cetera. You bring in the WBC, and now they say, okay, you're doing our show. Well, we're going to bring in 3 judges. One is from Spain. You're doing a show in Chicago. One is in Spain. One is in Mexico, and the other one's in California. So you got to fly all 3 of these guys. 2 European tickets. You got to fly these guys out. You got to bring them in. You got to feed them. You got to, do this, do that, and do the other thing. And, oh, by the way, because it's a championship fight, they're getting, $2,500 a piece to do this. And by the way, we want you to use this referee because he's next in line and blah, blah, blah. So the promoter's paying all of that. I'm not saying they don't do it. And I'm sure that, they get their deals or what have you. But, the thing is this, the WBC, they got to stop separating themselves. I know the reason why they're trying to, but it's not good for the sport. Anyway, we got a caller on the line. What's your name? Where are you calling from?
It's nobody here, Billy. I'm from New York.
Oh, God. Yeah, you're all you're doing in that chat room is getting me hungry, talking about steak and everything else. But
hey, I'm kind of hungry myself. It's about an hour or so from dinner time. So.
The Homestead, I think, closed down. I was talking about the Homestead. It's doing a meat district.
Did they?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it did. It was actually the oldest steakhouse in the United States. It was I think it was first opened in the late 1600s. It's been around a long time, man. It was really, really good, man. It was real good. But anyway, what do you think, man? What's your thoughts potentially on the two fights that were, at least that I'm hoping for? The rumor of Keith Thurman against Marcos Maidana, and I'm just praying that Floyd gives Shawn Porter a shot. What's your thoughts on both of those?
Well, I think, first thing I want to agree with you about Adonis Stevenson card. The only reason why I want to see that is because I think his haircut is pretty cool, but that's about it. The Thurman Maidana fight, I think that's a great fight. I mean, that's a fight that really could be a main event if they had more fans.
Easily a main event. Easily a main event. That's a Showtime main event through and through, man. Through and through.
Definitely. And Shawn Porter versus Floyd. I mean, that's a good fight for Shawn Porter. But I thought he's fighting Kell Brook. So I mean, if he has to fight Kell Brook, I don't see how he's going to fight Mayweather. And I don't know if the time is going to be right for him, because he'd have to fight two fights pretty close together. I mean, they did it in the old times, but that's not what we do now. So I don't know. And there's no guarantee he's going to beat Kell Brook either.
Well, first of all, the Kell Brook fight has not been signed. And Kell Brook was hesitant about fighting him. They haven't agreed on the fight, on a date, on a location. None of that. I do think that he might be a mandatory, but when you mention Floyd Mayweather's name, nobody's going to pass up an opportunity with Floyd. I'm not talking about Shawn. I'm talking about his. What has he got? The WBA title. So he's, or it's either that or the
IBF. IBF.
He has the IBF. Okay. Well, the IBF is not going to. I'm glad you keep track of it all. But the IBF isn't going to pass up an opportunity to have Floyd and Mayweather fight for their title. So if Floyd decides that he's going to give Shawn Porter a shot, that fight will happen. And just think of it this way. We were complaining about the Mayweather pay-per-view. We were complaining about the Pacquiao pay-per-view. I wasn't complaining about the Cotto Marquez pay-per-view until they announced the undercard, and I'm like, oh my God, this is terrible. So you got 3 pay-per-views this year already, and yes, we got a good one from the Mayweather card. I also like the Pacquiao, but on paper they didn't look good. But man, you look at this, and if those 2 fights are made, I mean, it can't. There's no way it could be a bad card. I mean, he's back to the big numbers with the buys, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, those are great fights. I mean, as long as a lot of it has to do with the public. I mean, I know that obviously the public knows Maidana now, but the public doesn't really know Keith Thurman that much, and not really even Shawn Porter either. But I think that they can make a really, really nice night of it. I don't know if he's going to get to 2 million, but maybe he can get to 1.3. I don't know. Who knows? I don't know that math. But
well, let me ask you this: Who would you listen? The fight that I have a feeling he's gonna take is Danny Garcia, because that's the easiest fight for Floyd. I hope he takes the harder road, and I'm not saying that Porter. I do think Porter beats him. I do, but I think it's very unlikely that Porter beats him. But I would be rooting for Porter. But my question is who else is there? I mean, unless Floyd does something that I wish he would do, like fight a Triple G or something like that, who else is left? When you take Pacquiao's name out of the mix, you take Bradley's name out of the mix because he's with Top Rank as well. Who else can we expect him to fight?
Well, I mean, that's an interesting question, because it really is not. And I think that even though we talk about ducking a lot, I think part of what Floyd does, and he actually said it in an interview, part of what he's doing is making sure that he actually has fights to fight. That's why he doesn't fight as much, because there's just not as much competition really at his level, and that people really care about. I mean, even when he fights, he's fighting a world champion of Maidana, and not really that many people care about it that much. Even though Maidana was, he only really got his world championship against a blown-up lightweight, but still, he was a world champion, but nobody really cared about it that much. And so I think that you're right. There's not a lot of people for him to fight. But if it's true that Golden Boy and Top Rank has kind of buried the hatchet, maybe we could have a Timothy Bradley fight. Maybe there's some other possibility. Maybe we might even have Pac-Man in 2025 or whatever it were.
I wouldn't count on that. And you know what? If Floyd, think of it this way, it could work out like this, even though it should have happened several years ago. But you never know with Floyd. Floyd definitely is good at keeping us on our toes. But could you imagine he finishes? I mean, think of it this way, right? He plays this whole he hates Arum game. He's not fighting Pacquiao. Blah blah blah. He goes through the deal with Showtime. After the September fight, he's only got 2 more fights left. So at the end of 2015, he's done with Showtime. Assuming he continues winning, he's 49-0. Now he says, I'm going to fight Manny Pacquiao for my 50th win, and I'm open for bids. Who's going to take this fight? Could you imagine the money that guy and Pacquiao and everybody involved, the guy sweeping the floors, is going to get a piece of it?
Oh, of course.
I mean, if it happened, we're going to be calling him the biggest, the smartest genius in the sports history, if that comes to fruition. Yeah,
definitely. And it's also pretty curious that the new stadium that they're building in Las Vegas that's going to have 20,000 seats is finishing in 2016, which happens to be when Floyd could do his 50-0, assuming that he keeps winning, assuming Pacquiao keeps winning, or whatever it is. So that's also very curious as well.
But
so maybe that's what he's looking to do.
But that fight, I mean, that was all Floyd propaganda, because it really doesn't matter. You see, the public doesn't care if Floyd. Let's just say Floyd loses and Manny loses, or better yet, let's say Floyd doesn't lose and Manny does. The value of the Floyd Mayweather versus Manny Pacquiao fight has nothing to do with that. Manny wasn't undefeated. He lost 2 of his fights early in his career. He wasn't even known in this country, undefeated. You know what I mean? So the losses only really mean something to Floyd because he's based his career on that. So really, even if Manny lost again, let's say he loses again next year, the fight still could be the biggest fight and money-making fight in the history of all sports if they fought especially if it was going for Floyd's 50th win.
Yeah, I mean, I think it would be. I still think Manny can't lose like he did to Juan Marquez, then no one will care. I think if he loses, let's say, a close decision, I think people won't care. If he loses a drag out fight, where it could go either way, I don't think people will care. Or even if he draw it, I don't think people will care. But I don't think people want to see Manny Pacquiao on the ground for 30 seconds again.
Yeah, but you know what? See, this is where guys like you frustrate the hell out of me. You can't listen. The style in which he fights and the types of fighters in which he fights against. You got that possibility every time the bell sounds. When the bell sounds to start the fight, you have that possibility. So why would you hold it against a guy that's taking those chances? If Floyd got knocked out cold and he was laying face down on the canvas the way Manny Pacquiao did, it would be more substantial and more of a hit for Floyd because he never lets anyone hit him. He's so defensively sound that if somebody does connect with a shot that puts him out like that, you're going to be like, oh, man. But Manny Pacquiao is standing right there. He's trading with every fighter he fights. The skill set between Manny Pacquiao and Floyd Mayweather, as far as pure boxing skill, are not similar. Mayweather is textbook boxing skill. Manny Pacquiao's got boxing skill, but not textbook.
Yeah, no, you're right, and I think that's a really valid point. That Manny fights a style that can put him in a situation where he can lose, or he can get knocked out big. I just think personally, from people I talk to, they don't want to see him beat that badly. Do you know what I mean? Like they don't want to.
Oh, because
they won't believe in him as much. Because a lot of people believe in Pac-Man. I mean, if you talk to someone from the Philippines, Pac-Man could lose 30 times and still be a champion.
No, I know.
But what I mean is that they don't want to see him. They won't believe in him as a challenger if he loses that badly again. That's what I'm saying.
You mean a legitimate challenge for Floyd? Yeah, but Floyd, but it's a different style fighter. You know, I don't know.
I know what you mean. I know what you mean. I mean, from a boxing standpoint, people lose, people get knocked out, but that doesn't mean that one person's better than the other. I mean, we were talking about Sugar Ray Robinson in the chat room, and he lost a lot towards the end of his career, but he was also fighting, you know, every 2 or 3 months. He was fighting really tough people, and he was also 40, or, you know, close to actually past 40. And that doesn't mean that he's less of a champion because of that in the boxing world. But I think regular people, they think that if a fighter loses in that particular fashion where he's out cold for 30 seconds, that's a big deal.
Oh, yeah.
You know, even Paulie Malignaggi, I mean, Paulie Malignaggi is not, you know, he has a great chin, and he got really knocked out in, you know, fighting Shawn Porter, and a lot of people are worried about Paulie when Paulie was never supposed to beat Shawn Porter anyway, really. I mean, I wanted him to win, but he was never supposed to beat him. I mean, and like I feel like regular people are sensitive to that. As a boxing fan, to me, I agree with you. You know, anytime Manny or Floyd can fight, you know, no matter when it is, assuming that they have all their faculties and they're not 50 years old, I want to see it.
Hey, there's nothing wrong with being 50. Hey, you know, let me tell you, you know, I thought that the Porter-Malignaggi fight was a huge fight for Porter because Malignaggi, I thought Malignaggi would have been able to move around and stay away and control the aggressiveness from Porter. You see, what Floyd does so well, and everybody blames Manny Pacquiao for picking the same kind of fighter all the time, but so does Floyd. Floyd, what he does exceptionally well as he uses aggressive fighters, the aggressive, I'm going to come and take your head off style fighter, and he uses that aggressiveness against them. And, you know, it's like, you know, he's taken their own force that they're trying to employ on him, and he's turning it around, and it's like they're fighting themselves. And that's what I was expecting Paulie to do to Shawn Porter. Shawn Porter showed me that he could get above and beyond it. Now, granted, don't get me wrong, I'm not comparing Paulie with Floyd Mayweather at all, but it was a step, and that's why I think Porter Mayweather is the fight. I think that should be the fight, and I would respect Floyd more than I ever could imagine I would respect Floyd if he chooses Shawn Porter next, because then I actually will believe that he is trying to fight the better fighters that he can. I would believe it, but up until he does that, I can't.
It would be very interesting, and it's a fight I want to see. I think, to me, Shawn Porter's a great fighter, but I think his height and his reach is a problem, and I don't think he's smart enough to beat a Floyd Mayweather who will exploit that all day throughout the entire fight.
Well, I think he's young enough and doesn't know enough, and I think that's his biggest asset. Him being so naive and his team being naive, I think, is the biggest asset. I think that a lot of fighters, and you just stumbled on something, a lot of fighters that face Floyd try to think too friggin' much. They put together these complicated game plans, and we got a plan A, B, C, and D, you know, and then they all panic. Nobody knows what to do, you know. I think the guy that is not thinking of anything but fundamentals is the guy that's actually going to have the best chance against Floyd. I don't know.
That's a good point. That's a good point. I mean, the simplest, you have to, if you're getting hit in the face or whatever, you got to be able to revert to something simple, you know, and if you can do that, you know, obviously you can have a good chance. I mean, even Maidana, you know, he was befuddled about Floyd many times, but he was able to go back to one thing that he has done his entire career, aside from the roughhousing, just different things that he was doing as far as being close to Floyd, keeping his head in his chest, you know, blocking Floyd when he could, and things like that nature. And that made the fight more interesting and gave him a chance to win. And I think you're right in the terms that Shawn Porter seems like he's smart enough to at least do that. He might not be able to do the advanced stuff, but he can at least give it a good fundamental fight, and that's what we want to see.
Yeah, no doubt. Well, thanks for calling in with your thoughts, and thanks for getting me hungry. I'm ready to take a bite out of my microphone, and we'll look forward to Monday while everybody's cooking burgers and dogs. We'll be doing the show, so don't forget to tune in.
No worries, Billy. Thanks a lot. Appreciate it.
Take care, brother. That's Nobody Here. You can find him in the chat room, annoying the hell out of everybody. But anyway, hey, we're talking about the ESPN tournament. that's wrapping up tomorrow at Turning Stone in Verona, New York. Well, I got a couple of other tournaments that I want to talk about, but it's going to wait till Monday. We got a light heavyweight tournament going on and a heavyweight tournament. And I got some other interesting news about the possibility of a heavyweight tournament happening in July, too. I'll give you an update on that. I'm going to find out more about that tomorrow. But before we go to the trivia question and stuff, Miguel Cotto had some comments today. They were asking him about his upcoming fight with Sergio Martinez. And two quotes I wanted to give you from decent questions. One was asking Miguel Cotto what it would mean to him to be the first Puerto Rican fighter to win world titles in not one, not two, not three, but 4 different weight classes. And Miguel Cotto said, it's a personal achievement that I want to win this 4th title on June 7th. I've been working for it. It doesn't mean I'm going to be better than Gomez or better than Trinidad or better than all the great champions from Puerto Rico that have been before me. But for myself, it's going to be the biggest accomplishment I've had in my career. When they asked him about Martinez's complaints about all the demands that Cotto made to make this fight, Cotto says if Sergio had any issues with anything around this fight, he could sit with his guys and talk about it. We closed the deal a long time ago. This is our time to train, and we shouldn't be talking about anything else. In a nutshell, I agree with that mentality. The time to negotiate is before you sign the contract. Once you sign the contract, you know what I say, shut the F up.
Wake up. It's time for the It's Too Early for a Trivia Question.
All right, our trivia question is being brought to us by the Turning Stone Resort and Casino and their next boxing event, which is tomorrow night. It's the Boxcino tournament finals for both divisions, the lightweight and the middleweight. Get yourself some tickets right now by visiting www.turningstone.com. Make sure you tell them Billy C sent you. The trivia question is also being brought to us in part by The Gentleman Boxer. Get this book. You can get The Gentleman Boxer where all good books are sold, including Barnes & Noble, Amazon.com. And you can also click one of the Gentleman Boxer banners on BillyCBoxing.com. And today's trivia question is also being brought to us in part by the Titty Grab game. If you're interested in the game, what is it? Check it out, www.tittygrab.com. You'll learn everything you need to know about the Titty Grab game. Our trivia questions are supplied to us by our very own trivia question guru himself, Henry Haskell. And yesterday's trivia question, we got lots and lots of answers for it. Henry's being easy on you guys because I could tell because we're getting a lot of answers. The question was, which fighter was DQ'd in successive world title fights to the same opponent? We got many correct answers, but Angelo Perez from Staten Island, a Fight Now viewer, he knew that Terry Norris lost twice to Luis Santana by disqualification. So congratulations to Angelo. He has not picked his prize yet, but he will. Today's It's Too Early for a Trivia Question. Question is simply this. I captured my first world title on my first try, but once I lost it, it took me almost 12 years and 5 tries before I would win another world title. Who am I? If you're the first one to answer this correctly by emailing me, Billy@TalkinBoxing, that's TalkinBoxing.com, you'll get a choice of some great prizes. I captured my first world title on my first try, but once I lost it, it took almost 12 years and 5 attempts before I would win another world title. Who am I? Email me the correct answer if you know it. Good luck on that one.
This day in boxing history.
And finally, this day in boxing history is being brought to us by LDL TV and Billy C's Hall of Fame Weekend Special. You can check out all the information about the Weekend Special by visiting www.billycboxing.com and click on the fight poster that says Billy C's Hall of Fame Weekend Special. It's all being made possible thanks to Sal's Neighborhood Pizzeria, the Courtyard by Marriott in East Syracuse off the Carrier Circle, and the Wax Museum with Ronnie Dark's Rock and Roll Show on Sunday nights, www.wvoaradio.com. On this day, May 22nd in 1941, Gus Lazenovich wins a 15-round decision over Tammy Morello. to win the vacant world light heavyweight title. It took place at Madison Square Garden in New York City. On this day in 1993, Roy Jones Jr. wins a 12-round decision over B-Hop to win the vacant IBF world middleweight title, and that took place in Washington, D.C. On this day in 1999, Floyd Mayweather Jr. knocks out Justin Juco in the 9th round to retain his WBC World Super Featherweight title, and that took place in Las Vegas. On this day in 1999, Oscar De La Hoya knocks out Obakar in the 11th round to retain his WBC World Welterweight title, and that took place in Las Vegas. On this day in 1993, Riddick Bowe knocks out Jesse Ferguson in the 2nd round to retain his WBA World Heavyweight title, and that took place in Washington, D.C. On this day, May 22nd in 1990, former world champion and boxing Hall of Famer Rocky Graziano, he died on this day at the age of 71 years old. He was a former world middleweight champion, and he was known for his exciting come-at-you style. He finished his career with 67 wins, 52 coming by knockout, with 10 losses and 6 draws. He was elected into the International Boxing Hall of Fame in 1991. He was in several TV shows, movies, and many, many commercials. Former world champion Rocky Graziano, a guy you should remember. Hey, man, that concludes our show for today. I got one more thing to say. Make sure you tune in Monday evening, same bat time, same bat channel. There's only one channel, Fight Now channel. Call your local television provider and tell them you want Fight Now. That's it, man. Look at their website for all the information, www.fightnow.com. Have a great weekend. Enjoy the fights. And on Memorial Day, make sure you tune it in right here, because we're going to be working while you're cooking hot dogs and hamburgers, man. Ciao, baby.